my name is Peter Sommer, and I'm the professor of saxophone here at Colorado State University. And I'm happy today to give you some helpful hints and some demonstrations of this year's all-state band excerpts for saxophone, the audition excerpts. So the first thing is, which I always tell all my students whenever they're preparing anything for an audition, is you want to work on the things that are objective first, which doesn't mean you can't start injecting some musicality right away, but you want to make sure you're taking care of the things that can be easily evaluated across everybody auditioning. Because if when we have a large pool of people auditioning for something like All-State Band, and everyone's playing the same music like they do for All-State Band, then if you're playing wrong notes, wrong rhythms, anything like that, you're immediately probably going to be tossed out of the pool. So you want to make sure you're playing all the right notes, all the right rhythms, all the right articulations, all the written dynamics. You want to make sure you're playing the correct tempo for the piece. It's really easy to go a lot faster, a lot slower than what's written without realizing it, so check those tempos with a metronome. And you might even want to start diving into intonation and making sure you're as in tune as possible. That's a fairly objective standard we can measure. And once those things are feeling comfortable and consistent, then you definitely want to dive in and make some more decisions about the microdynamics, decisions about phrasing, decisions about subtle fluctuations in the tempo. How are we going to play things like a cello rondos and retards? And like I said, it's not that you can't start incorporating some of those things right from the beginning, but you don't want to work on those things at the expense of the things that can be objectively evaluated. And speaking of intonation, one thing I would specifically work on in the slow etude is making sure that we're playing as in tune as possible. We always want to play as in tune as possible, but on a slow etude it's really obvious if we're holding notes for a long time and they're really sharp or really flat. And this year's Andante etude excerpt audition material in D minor is a little challenging because the D's are problematic on the saxophone and the A's are problematic on the saxophone, especially the high A. We're going to have a lot of those. So one thing I do to practice is I practice a lot with drones. And I use my phone. I usually run it through some speakers, but you could use headphones, maybe one headphone in and one headphone out, or some open back headphones so you can hear yourself. And I like to use this Real Tempura app, which emulates what's called a Shruti box. And so I've got it here on concert F, which is our D. And I'll turn it up so you can hear it there. And that gives me kind of a drone with a rhythmic undercurrent. It's playing roots and fifths, so it's playing R, Ds, and As, or F and C in concert. And then I'll put that on and I'll play short segments of the piece, and especially the parts that are clearly in D minor. In this case, you can play pretty much the whole etude with this drone on. And I'll really center in on notes that are really easy to hear with the drone, things like roots and fifths, but also try to check the thirds. I might even venture so far as to check like a 13th. Let me sit on that for a while and see what it sounds like. So let me just play a little bit so you can see what I mean. I hung on that D even though it's not a long note, but I might stay on it for a little while because that middle D is usually a very sharp note, and I want to make sure that I've got it as in tune as I can play it. Just because a note tends to be one way or the other on the saxophone doesn't give us an excuse to just play it that way all the time. We want to work to play with the best intonation we possibly can. So I find drones to be a very useful tool. You can also, of course, use a visual tuner, something with a needle or a smiley face to help show you when you're in tune. But ultimately, when we play, we're going to play using our ears, not our eyes. So we want to couple that visual tuner with something like a drone to help us develop that sense of inner pitch that we can trust. And now here's a demonstration of this slow Andante excerpt in D minor. Moving on now to the fast etude, the Allegro in G minor. Of course, the challenges here are going to be to play all the right notes, rhythms, and articulations at the correct tempo. At this tempo of a quarter note equals 72, the articulation is doable, but will require a little bit of practice to feel comfortable. If you're very comfortable double tonguing, I would go ahead and use that in spots where it makes it easier for you to keep up with the tempo. When we're playing all this articulation up and down the instrument, we really want to work on evenness of sound. We don't want certain notes to pop out unnecessarily. We want to try to keep a certain level of control over our tone, even though our fingers are moving quickly and our tongue is moving quickly. And then I wanted to go over one specific section in this that I think is probably challenging for younger saxophonists, intermediate saxophonists, that I think can be fixed with just a correct use of fingering. And this is the section with the, it's at fortissimo, and it's the B diminished chord that we play all the way up the instrument, this part. That section there. That can be challenging. First of all, we often haven't practiced our diminished seventh chords as much as we practice things like major and minor triads. Diminished seventh chords are a great thing to practice. They come up all the time, especially in etudes like this. So the first thing is, obviously getting that low B to come out can be challenging, so we want to make sure we're using lots of air support, that we're not tightening up, but also that we're not dropping the embouchure either, that we're just keeping the embouchure steady, using a lot of air and a nice clear articulation. My first hint for this section is to use this low B key, the inside one here on the spatula keys. Use that all the way up, because it will work fine for the G sharps as well, so you don't have to try to switch anything there. That will help keep our mind a little more at ease if we can just keep that finger in the same place the whole time. Also keep in mind it's just the same 4 notes over and over again, so that's going to feel like it's got some repetition. So I'll try to demonstrate that here for you. As we get up there, you can see I'm still using this fingering. And then the last thing is I use the front F key for the high F at the very top of this line, because I find it much easier to switch from that high F back down to the low C. I find that easier than trying to go where I might be using the palm key F. Now there is one trick if you want to use the palm key F, which is to hit the E key or the C3 key if you use Londex's fingering system. I use that with my thumb. So that makes fingering that a little easier, but I still find, just to be easier, my fingers are already all in place for the low C. I don't have to move around so much. So if I do that, it makes it a lot easier for me to make that big leap down there, which is definitely, I think, one of the most challenging spots in this etude. And now here's a demonstration of this Allegro etude in G minor. Hope you enjoy. I hope these demonstrations are helpful in your preparation for your all-state band audition. And if you have any questions at all, please let me know, get in touch. But in the meantime, I hope you have a great day, and thanks for checking these out.
Thanks so much for watching this Colorado All-State Prep video. If you have any questions or concerns, please visit music.colostate.edu for more information, including the opportunity to schedule an individual visit with the School of Music, Theater, and Dance. Good luck on your audition.